Hi, I'm Bart Hanson. I'm the owner and lead instructor for CrushLivePoker.com. The following hand comes from our call-in show that we record live at 2 p.m. Eastern Time every Monday. If you enjoy this video, hit that like button, and if you want to submit to be on the show, take a look at the information in the description.
Awesome. I have a hand from Seminole Hard Rock, the new location down here in Hollywood, Florida.
The new location?
Yeah, they just built a brand new, like, multi-million-dollar hotel with new poker room as well. So,
Oh, when did they?
it's the same location.
Oh,
Same
okay.
location, but just different poker room. Different location in the actual casino.
Right. So it's not because I haven't been down there in quite some time, but I used to go down for that 10 million guarantee where like the poker room had this gigantic like portable air conditioner in it or something like that. It was just weird.
Yeah,
You could tell it was old.
It's a lot nicer now.
Okay.
It's Vegas style, basically.
And you had to walk
But I have a
outside you had to walk from the tournament to the cage or some like outside.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Not the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a hand. I'm playing 2-5, about 1,500 effective.
Wow.
And I know you don't want to go too deep into the villain, and I don't really know much about this guy other than he's kind of just a classic, older, passive male, not really raising basically ever when he's coming into the pot, basically limping, I would say, 80% of the hands he plays. I've seen him raise maybe 2 times in the last 4 hours. So
this guy doesn't
when he
happen
raises, I put him on.
So this guy doesn't happen to be about 5'4", balding, and like maybe in his late 40s to early 50s in a daytime game, does it? That's not. Is this
No, I know who you're talking about.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know who I'm talking about from CLP, or you know who I'm talking about just from playing?
Yeah. I don't know his name, but I just know him from the show, and
okay.
I can recognize
not
his
him
voice.
though.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2-5, 15.
Yeah, no, it's not him. It's not him. I'm sure he probably knows this guy because he's a regular. But anyway, this guy doesn't raise that much. Just kind of a classic limp passive player. So he raises under the gun +1 to 20, and it folds all the way to me in the small blind. I have red kings, king of diamonds, king of hearts.
Yep.
And I make it 80. Big blind folds, and the villain calls.
Okay, so how deep are you guys? You're 1,500 effective. So you said +1.
Yeah, about
this guy,
1,500.
and this guy doesn't raise that much. He's like an older passive
he does
guy.
not raise. Like I mean,
Okay.
he's in the pots a lot. He's playing a lot of hands, but he's calling, limping. He'll open limp. He has no problem with open limping. Doesn't have any real pre-flop strategy, in my opinion.
So this is probably a pretty strong range, right? You would say.
Yeah, I figure, I put him on a stronger range than his, like, 6-9 offsuits or his 10-7 off that he's been playing,
Okay.
So he makes it 20, I make it 80. I think that would be a standard sizing with how deep we are. I mean,
sure.
I'm basically just kind of calling this in as a line check for you. I want you to kind of dissect sizings and everything. But I think that's kind of my standard, so I think that would be okay.
I think that's fine. And you're 1,500 effective too, and it's like, well, usually a guy like this is just going to put in the extra. He's going to put the extra bet in if he has aces anyway. So you make it 80.
Exactly. So I'm
out of the small blind. He calls pots like 160, 170, and your heads up.
Yeah, 165. We're heads up. It is 6 of spades, 3 of spades, 4 of clubs.
6 of spades, 3 of spades, 4 of clubs. Now, by the way, again, people look at the way that certain boards interact with ranges, but then they don't take into account the configuration. This is a very good board for you. It would be much different.
I thought so.
It would be much different if you were like, 3-betting out of the small blind against a button open, a competent button open, and then a competent button open defended, where there's going to be all kinds of hands that the button can have here on this board. It seems to me like this guy's going to have like ace king, ace queen, and smaller overpairs here. So I would start betting.
I was really hoping for like a smaller board. Obviously, no ace, no jack, no 10, no queen, because I kind of put him on that kind of range there. So I let out 75 into 165.
Well, that's like an in-between bet somebody in the live chat is saying down bet. Why would you down bet? That's what I'm saying. Like, I think that a lot of people that are trying to learn this stuff, they don't understand, or they might misapply the sort of 1/3 sizing, the down bet sizing. Yeah, you can pretty much down bet a lot of boards in a 3-bet pot, but why would you down bet this one? This is +1, a strong range.
I mean, I'm hoping that he has like 10 jacks, queens.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I would have bet
or,
I would have bet like 125 to 130.
Okay, so you're betting more like 75% pot.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, whether he would like if you were to bet 45 or 50, and then he peels with like some ace highs. I mean, I guess where somebody could make the argument.
Yeah, this guy was super. He was very like he's basically calling anything if it's a smaller size bet. So I kind of wanted to keep him in there with his potential like ace jack that he might want to float me with. He was floating with middle pairs, second pairs, third pairs. So he is someone that's going to be floating a little bit lighter than your average old man coffee who's just going to snap forward his ace queen,
I mean, you could say like, well, you could bet 1/3 and then start betting large on the turn to get those calls from the ace highs, I guess. Or you could sort of use sort of a variable like to like bet like 100 here. But remember, you've 3-bet pre out of the small blind and he's called. So it's not just a single raise pot, and you have 2 kings in your hand. So yeah, I just think that his range
it helps that I have red kings as well.
Yeah, that's true. But I think his range is pretty concentrated on a lot of. I feel like his range is going to be concentrated like on a lot of pairs. Like if you were to look at like 9s, 10s, jacks, queens, 6 combinations of each of those, 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, that's like 24 combos. If he has ace king, you have 2 kings in your hand, so there's only 8 of those left. And then ace queen, you know what I mean? Like it's like you start to go down the line. But anyways, all right, you bet 75.
Yeah, I bet 75. He pretty quickly calls, which I figured he would. I mean, I'm putting him on mostly pocket pairs is my range assumption of what he has. So I was basically for sure knowing that he was going to be calling my flop bet. So we go to the turn 365 in the middle.
Yep.
Turn 6 of diamonds. And this is where I kind of go off of on a different line. I plan to check raise, so I check and he bets, which I was assuming that he would either be by taking a stab with potentially his floating hands or also trying to protect with like 9s, 10s, jacks. So he bets 135 after I check to him. And I check raise to 325.
All right, so let's stop here for a second. And this is really where, so hero checks, +1 bets 135, and the action is on hero. And you said you made it 325?
Yeah, 325.
So this is really all where you have to put the entire hand together with and how you'd play this turn with flop sizing. So if you had bet a little bit smaller on the flop, like you had used that down bet sizing of like 45 to 50. I mean, you're using 75. It's kind of in between. I could actually get on board with this line because he's going to have a lot of floats on the flop, right? And he's going to be like, oh, I'm going to take it away here on the turn. If you use my larger sizing on the flop, then I would just continue to bet the turn, right? I would just continue to bet the turn. I wouldn't go for a check raise. You're sort of in between on the flop with sizing. So as like a 40%-ish type of bet. So I don't know if I would take this as a check raise with your sizing. I would tend to sort of bet. The times that I would go for a check raise, like I said, would be with smaller sizing. And it's just because like, I don't know how many floats there. So here's the thing. If you don't use obscenely small sizing on the flop, and you bet 75.
Yeah.
I don't know how many like just naked floats there are. Meaning that like, okay, maybe he takes one off with ace king, ace queen sometimes. Okay, those are his floats.
With an ace of spades or something like that.
Those are his floats. But a lot of those hands don't bet the turn. You see what I'm saying? Whereas if you bet like 45 as a down bet, you'll see guys be in there with any shit. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah, of
because they
course.
don't
Yeah.
think you have anything. Like queen jack, no backdoor. And that's
Yep.
why then they'll bet the turn because they can't get to showdown when the six pairs with queen jack no backdoor when they floated you because of the down bet, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
yours is kind of in between because I don't expect to see those like really naked floats to a $75 flop bet. Um, so that's kind of. But anyways, you get the bet on the turn. Let's move
Yeah.
on. You
So
get the bet on the
my
turn,
my
right?
rationale behind it was that I put him on nines through queens
Mm-hmm.
from the very start. I mean, he was never raising, so he raises. He pretty quickly calls my three bet. He's not really contemplating four betting, so I don't think he has maybe queens or aces or kings. So I put him on those hands. I figured if I check to him, he
Yeah.
will then try to protect with those hands.
Right. Right.
And
No, I get
that's
it.
kind of my rationale. I don't
No,
know
I
if
think
that
I
might be.
think that I think now on the turn that you have. I just wanted to break down whether or not I would check the turn when using your flop sizing.
Okay.
Now that you have and you get the sizing, I can definitely get on board with it. With the check raise, he's not going to have 6x, and it's going to look like a lot of pairs that are higher. The question is how much do you want to check raise? You know, and here you
Yeah,
made
so
it
I make
like
it 325.
yeah.
I mean, I think kind of closer to. It's not really too large of a sizing. Hopefully, we'll keep him in there with his pairs.
I probably would have gone a little bit on the larger side here. I think that
Okay.
I might have gone to like 400 to 425 because I think you're going to get the same calling range as 325.
Okay.
I don't think that 325 is going to get like nines to fold, excuse me, nines to call, but 425 is going to get him to, fold. And by the way, people look at this from a theoretical perspective and be like, how can you check raise here? Like you have no, what are your bluffs here? It doesn't matter that he has no bluffs here. I mean, this is where we're talking about like the profitability of live play and
Yeah.
making,
Of
you
course.
already
Yeah.
said
People
like
don't fold.
this guy doesn't
They're
know
not
that
going
he
to
doesn't
fold to
have
me.
bluffs here.
No.
There's
No, he
form
doesn't.
to not check raise here to maximize value because you don't have bluffs here. It would be a huge
Yeah, of course.
profitability mistake. So I would tend to go to 425. I like that. Yes, once you check and he bets 135, I like it. I definitely like it. I mean, one of the other things that you could consider doing, but I prefer a check raise because you're deeper and you want to take the lead is sometimes like I'll call this an upfront bet where you'll like check call the turn and then just blast a blank
Lead river.
But
Yeah.
there's a lot of non-blank rivers here though, right? Like one-liners to a deuce, 5, 7, front door spades. You know what I mean? So, but occasionally you can play that too. Like you can check call 135 and now the pot's like, 600, right? And then you just
Yeah, then you
bet
can
like
lead.
600 at the end or 500 or 600. But I kind of like going to 400 and then he calls and the pot's like, 1,000. And then you can bet 600 or 700. So I do like the check raise. I would tend to go a little bit on the larger side. What ended up happening? So you make it
Okay.
325. Yeah.
So I make it 325, and as I was expecting, he calls. So
Okay.
he doesn't really think too much. He calls.
Yep.
So I'm thinking I have him in a great spot, which, I think most people would think as well. The river is not the best card, the deuce of clubs, so front door flush misses, but
So by the way,
one-liner to five.
my calculation is the pot is right around 1,000, right? It's like
Yeah,
1,015.
1,000, yep.
So the river is the deuce of clubs. So again, it goes +1, who limps a lot, older guy to 20, hero 1,500 effective, gets folded to hero in the small blind, 2-5 at Seminole Hard Rock makes it 80 with red kings. Villain 1 calls, pot's 165. Flop comes out 6 of spades, 3 of spades, 4 of clubs. Hero bet 75. Villain 1 calls under the gun, pot's 365. The turn's a 6 of diamonds. Hero checks, villain 1 bets 135. Hero makes it 325, call. And now the pot is 1,015, and the river is the deuce of clubs, which puts a one-liner out there to a 5, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
And now your question is, what do I do? Probably, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in a tough spot. I don't
know.
think
I
he
don't think
should
that the
have-
5 really affect. I mean, it looks like it's sort of on the scarier side, but how many 5s does he have, though?
Yeah, I don't.
He's
I
got
don't
1,000.
Really expect him to have many fives.
He's got
Maybe
1,000
8,
left.
5 of spades,
So you guys have 1,000 left, right? In your
Yeah, close.
I'd bet like 400 to 500 here, probably. I would think.
Okay.
I'd bet 400 to 500 here. sometimes this can get weird where you get in a situation where you're like, well, can I use like a block sizing here? Not only to get called by worse, but almost allow myself to bet fold if I never think the guy's going to bluff at the end. Like if he does have some fractional hands that beat you, but they're always jamming, they're never just calling, then you can sort of choose a block sizing that gets that job
Okay.
done with value. So maybe 350 to 400. I really do still expect you to have the best hand here. I mean, this kind of reminds me of like a 510 commerce hand played out of like 2009, 2010. You know what I mean? Mr. Dave PRN says borderline, maybe check call. Why would you ever check call here? I don't understand why you would check call unless you think that, I mean, I guess because he's going to bluff front door spades.
This opponent will not bluff. I mean,
yeah.
he's just not, from what I've had experience playing with him for the past, couple sessions that I've ever played there with him, he's just never going to put in a $300-400 bluff on the river. He may overvalue some hands for sure,
right?
But I never really expected him to bluff river. So I ended up leading 375, so a pretty small bet.
Okay, so you basically did the same thing that I would have done, right?
Yeah, and then I guess that sizing is okay. I mean, I'm basically trying to just target his pairs. And something that I'm really working on is I've ran some bluffs, obviously, in the past couple months, and sometimes they don't go well, and obviously I get snapped off or called. And when I'm bluffing, I might overbet the pot or just put a bunch of pressure on these people, and they still call me.
It's interesting that you say that, because there's a guy in the chat here that says jam the river. Now on the surface, people will be like, well, how can you jam the river here? I think it actually depends on your image. So like I said, going back 10 years when these, I see a young kid playing, or me playing against this old guy that doesve believe the young whippersnapper, you'd actually be surprised
my image
jam.
is insane.
Right, a jam could get called by like an overpair here, because now you're putting like a one-liner out there.
For some reason, I'm not sure if I'm a younger guy. I look probably younger than I really am, and in this session, I'm usually pretty talkative with the group, but this session I was just kind of like listening to music and had my hat on. I'm not really a crazy watching movies iPad kind of guy, but I am talkative to some people. But for this session, I really wasn't talking. So for some reason, bluffs don't really work as well for me. Maybe I'm doing them not in the best circumstances, but for me, if I bet for value, people will always call me. Just I don't know if it's my face, my image, whatever. So I was assuming I can't really check this river after betting. He's gonna have to see it. If he has jacks, he's gonna have to call me. So
right.
I bet 375. He tanks for about like 30 seconds or more, and he starts cutting out the chips. And I'm really super happy that he's tanking, that he's thinking. And
by the way,
calls,
before you reveal anything, I was going to say, if he calls here and doesn't raise, which it sounds like he does, you expect to be good here like 80-90% of the time, right?
I expect to be good here like 95%.
No, right. So you're very happy that he calls. Okay. So what did he end up having?
So he calls, and I show kings, and he kind of gets up, looks, and shows 6-7 of hearts. So he turned trips on me. And I guess I had my range on him totally off.
But here's the thing. But here's the thing. I think that you don't want to be result oriented. I mean, one of the things that maybe your range was slightly off in this case, but one of the things that I will commonly put out a tip, almost like once. I'll put this sort of tip out, whether it's phrased. I change the wording basically like slightly, but I'll put the same concept out every month, which is if you want to be a good No Limit Holdem player, you need to value own yourself on the river. Now, usually when we talk about value owning, it's usually when check to in position on the river. And of course, when we say value own, what we mean is that you are betting the best, you are value betting the worst hand. So you're value betting a hand that actually is not the best hand, and you're getting called by a better hand, so you lose.
Yeah.
The reason why you have to do that is because if when you're value betting and you're called, you always have the best hand or 90% of the time, then you're checking far too much, right? Because there are other
Yeah,
spots where you
exactly.
could be value betting and getting called by a worse
And
hand, and
yeah,
you're not betting.
exactly.
So, I mean, I look at this as
Yeah.
just like this is a standard value. I mean, maybe not standard the way the hand played out, but I would definitely I would definitely have played the hand similar to you, whether or not I would have
Yeah, I
checked the
thought the
turn.
line
But
was a little bit odd. I mean, most of the time people would just bet, bet, bet. And, in all honesty, maybe if I bet the turn, if I bet 200 on the turn and he makes it 450, maybe I could get away. And then I save myself some money.
well, I don't know if you get away.
Potentially,
I
but
don't know if you get away, but the river would probably just go check check at least, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
Um,
I actually think that with this particular opponent, if I check the river, he may actually check back with his trips. I mean, he was not happy
right, right,
calling the 375. So
right, right,
it kind
right.
of shows some of the players that will play at this place are very scared money monsters under the bed. So I mean, I was doing, I was super happy. He was tanking, tanking, tanking. I mean, he calls. I expect to see jacks, tens, queens a lot of the time, but I just wanted to kind of run this over with you. I didn't. I mean, I know it's a bad result, and we don't think he has many sixes in his range. But I also, I
No, I
think
think it's
that
a good
if he
call.
did have
No, I think it's a good call. And
tens or
like I
jacks,
said,
hopefully,
yeah, the line is not standard, but I think it goes back to how you want to do it on the turn, how you want to play it based upon your flop sizing. But you have to get more money in the pot once you get to the turn, and you sort of have this like broad idea of what his range is, and you're faced at like 135. Then check raising is definitely fine. Sometimes you can get in these situations where you can check call and then just like lead the river, but I'm fine with the way that you played it. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for the call. If you like what you've seen here, please hit the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this call in hand, hit the like button down below. To check out crushlivepoker.com, click on the link in the description. Use the code YTA300 to get the first 30 days for free.